When their bank heist goes wrong in a massive riot, two brothers in near-future LA have only one option. The Hotel Artemis, a secret hospital for criminals right at the top of an abandoned hotel. But tonight is a busy night at the Hotel Artemis, and while the riot rages on the streets below, several guests or patients have their own agenda. Hotel Artemis is a thriller that's set in a cyberpunk LA. It's beautifully executed, and it's a great feature debut from director Drew Pearce, better known as a co-writer on Iron Man 3. My favourite sort of production design explains the world that it's in via how the world is made up, what it looks like, and this is a great example of that. The Hotel Artemis, where almost all of the film takes place, is really beautifully brought to life. It's this old Art Deco hotel that's basically crumbling, lights flickering on and off, and each room has its own massive mural that depicts the area that the room is named after. You have the Niagara suite, you have the LA suite, you have the Acapulco suite, and everything in those spaces is lovingly designed, especially a shout out to the designers of the UI for the in-house computer that's used in the film. It's this amazing sort of analog mix. It looks like photocopied or even hand-drawn graphics at points, which is really cool looking and very different to other UIs you see in the film, like these super futuristic stuff that's used in basically the personal communication devices people have, and the kind of iPad that the nurse character who's in charge of the hotel carries around, which basically looks like a really old version of Windows 95 or something. It's really important that this film is well realised because almost all of the action of the movie takes place in that one set of the Hotel Artemis. And that's great because it allows the characters in the film to breathe. Now, these characters aren't the most incredibly deep. In some ways, they're dealing with archetypes. You have this beautiful but deadly female assassin. You have this kind of thief with a conscience who's ostensibly the main character of the film. You have this smarmy arms dealer, and you have this rough but with a heart of gold character who's the orderly of the hospital. Although those character tropes are a little flat, a little cliche, and are somewhat rough-hewn in the sense they don't get much backstory, most of them, the dialogue between them is poppy enough and the chemistry between the actors works well enough that the film zips along at a really nice pace. It doesn't hurt, of course, that the film has an absolutely stellar cast. Jodie Foster is the nurse in charge of Hotel Artemis, Dave Bautista is her orderly, Sofia Boutella, Charlie Day, Zachary Quinto, Jeff Goldblum. The cast is really good for this movie, and it's because of them that the film really works. I think it's very chemistry-led, and without them, you'd have a real difficulty making that dialogue land, because it is often quite pulpy. So after a quick kick-off outside the Hotel Artemis with this bank heist that goes wrong, the rest of the movie pretty much takes place within the confines of the hotel itself. And what you get is a refreshingly slow thriller, because you start off with just being introduced to all these characters, and then one by one you learn about the pressures that are on them, and then those pressures start piling up as the film continues. And what that means is that the film really ratchets up the pacing. It goes from being really slow and conversation-led to having these pressures keep on piling onto the characters until stakes get higher and higher, and suddenly events are coming thick and fast in the finale of the film. It's really clinically done, and it's a wonderful example of how you can do this sort of movie. And helping matters along quite considerably, I should say, is the really atmospheric cinematography of the film by Chung-Hoon Chung, better known as working with Park Chan-wook on films like Oldboy and The Handmaiden. There's one really lovely example where Jodie Foster is sitting in front of a big mural of the Niagara Falls, and the mural is kind of lit by this lamp that's on the table behind her, and she's on her own in this scene. And it just kind of took me for a moment. It was this moment of introspection with this fake background. It was just a really artistic way of explaining that character beat, and that's something you don't often see in action films of this stripe. It actually reminds me of a film called Smokin' Aces, which came out in the noughties and had a sort of similar plot, and it was about a load of assassins trying to get hold of a target at the top of a hotel in Las Vegas or Reno or something. Hotel Artemis wears its pulp inspirations proudly, and it should be approached as that. This isn't a film that wants to be a work of art, but nevertheless the craft that goes into the film is so good that it really elevates the movie as an experience. I think for this kind of movie, this is as good as you can get it. You have these really exciting, slightly archetypal but nevertheless interesting, pulpy characters occupying this cool, really well-designed, enclosed space that explains a lot about a bigger world outside it, but nevertheless feels restricted and closed. Inside that space you have these ever so slightly I've seen it before call and response banter sequences, but most of the dialogue is original and poppy enough, and the character relationships are interesting enough that when they interact with the many twists and turns and kind of increasing pressures of the screenplay and of the structure of the story, you end up with something really watchable. It's just a lot of fun, and I don't mean that in a way that critics usually use it, which is to excuse some perceived faults with the movie. I think it was always designed to be this pulpy, and it is really enjoyable. It's just a good time in the cinema. I love action movies, but I find so many of them disappointing because they end up being generic and trite and obvious. And Hotel Artemis is none of those things. It really does its best to craft something interesting and exciting out of those genre elements. And it's a debut feature from a British writer-director. I think that's incredible, and it's really exciting that he got to make a movie like this. Yeah, I'm gonna stop gushing about it. I think you should go see the movie, and I think you should go see it right now. That is, unless you've already seen it, in which case I'd love to know about what you thought about the movie. Please let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to see other opinions on this. And that Smoking Aces comparison, if you can think of any other movies similar to this, I'd love to know because I'd like to watch them. Don't forget to click like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to see more like it. You could even ring that bell. I can't believe I said that. I really feel false saying these things, but I want more views for the channel, so I'm just going to do it anyway. That's it from me. Have a good one. Bye for now.